Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Brush Up Your Shakespeare, where we make Shakespeare fun and easy, the way it was always meant to be. This is episode 17, and today we will be covering Hamlet Act 4, Scene 4. The line for tonight's episode is, "Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth." And here's the title slide for tonight's show on Hamlet Act 4, Scene 4. And there is the line for tonight. "Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth." Say it with me one more time. "Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth." As you recall from last episode, Hamlet has been sent to England by Claudius, the new king of Denmark, in the company of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And Claudius has sent along with them sealed letters to be delivered to the King of England upon their arrival, which letters may indeed contain directions to the King of England to execute Hamlet on the spot. But Hamlet hasn't made it to England yet. In fact, it appears there is a bit of a hike Hamlet has to take in order to get from the castle to the ship. Do you remember the name of the castle in Denmark, by the way? If you said Elsinore, you go to the head of the class. On the way between castle and boat, Hamlet and his escort run into the captain of a large army from Norway. Norway at this point is on somewhat friendly terms, at least with Denmark, and they are not there to fight against Denmark. Instead, they are going to fight against Poland. So, why are they in Denmark at all? Well, the Prince of Norway has sent his captain to request permission from Denmark to march his army across Danish ground in order to get to Poland, where the fighting will be. It's Norway against Poland. Denmark is sitting this one out. And here is a map that shows where Norway is in the top center of this map. There's Norway, and down below it, you can see to the south is Poland. Now, Norway could go up north and all the way around through Finland and then through Russia and come marching all the way down to Poland if it wanted to, I suppose. But it's much easier for Norway to get to Poland simply by going over a few of these small channels between Norway, Sweden, and Denmark in order to go through Denmark to get to Poland. And that's what's happening in this scene. Hamlet asks the captain about the nature of this particular battle, expecting it to be over a large and important piece of land. I mean, there are 20,000 soldiers from Norway. Surely it must be a large and important battle. But the captain tells Hamlet it is not so. Actually, it is over a very small piece of land that really is of no military or political significance. Hamlet says, "Goes it against the main of Poland, sir, or for some frontier?" The captain says, "Truly to speak, and with no addition or exaggeration, we go to gain a little patch of ground that hath in it no profit but the name. To pay 5 ducats, 5, I would not farm it." Or in other words, I would not lease it out as a tenant farmer to farm it for 5 ducats. "Nor will it yield to Norway or the Pole a ranker rate or a higher rate than 5 ducats should it be sold in fee." So even if you sold this piece of property, it is so small that it would not yield 5 ducats as a selling price. Hamlet tells the captain that surely Poland will not defend this piece of ground if it really is so meaningless. The captain again corrects Hamlet. Hamlet says, "Why then the Polak never will defend it?" And the captain says, "Yes, it is already garrisoned. They are already defending it." Hamlet says, 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of this straw. He is still in disbelief that so much manpower and so much money is being used to go and fight over such a small piece of ground. And it is so worthless that he likens it unto a straw. Hamlet sends the company with which he is traveling on ahead so he can have a little time to contemplate on what he has heard. This contemplation will take the form of Hamlet's seventh and final soliloquy in this play. And this soliloquy will end this scene of Act 4, Scene 4. Hamlet says to his company, "I'll be with you straight or right away. Go a little before." So the rest of the people in Hamlet's company leave him alone on the stage where he begins his last soliloquy. How all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge. Everything that Hamlet sees tells him and reminds him that he still has to avenge his father's death by slaying Claudius, and yet he still hasn't gotten around to it. Why hasn't he gotten around to it? This is what this soliloquy is about. Hamlet says, "What is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? A beast, no more. Sure, he that made us, and that's God, that's why the he is capitalized. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capacity and godlike reason to fuss in us unused." Now, here, Hamlet is saying that God gave us a brain and he must expect us to use it. Otherwise, why would he give it to us? This is perhaps the most quoted part from this soliloquy, expressing in gorgeous language the sentiment of why would God give us this brain? Why would he give us this capacity, this large discourse, looking before and after, which means we have the ability as humans to look before us or in the future and after us or in the past. Whereas other animals, we do not believe have that ability. Only mankind has this capacity. And why would God give us so much capacity to use our brain if he did not expect us to use it? Now, this is a fantastic quote, and it is often used to talk about why it is that we need to use our brain to think about things instead of accepting things perhaps just on faith. The irony of it, of course, is that Hamlet is using it as a justification for why it is that he has not yet acted. Remember, we're getting toward the end of Act 4. Hamlet should have killed Claudius by at least Act 1. And yet here we are toward the end of Act 4, and Hamlet still has not killed Claudius. What is going on? He is thinking this to death, and he's recognizing the fact he's thinking it to death, and now he's seeking to use as a justification that, of course, he's thinking it to death because God gave him a brain to think with, so why wouldn't he be thinking it to death? However, this rationale of his is going to fall by the wayside as he continues with this soliloquy. Hamlet goes on. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion, like the beast, remember the beast doesn't have that ability to think that man does. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion or some craven scruple, and craven means cowardly, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event. See, Hamlet is now calling himself out for overthinking this, for using his brain too much. It's getting in the way of his accomplishing what it is that he's supposed to do, which is avenging his father's death. He says, now, whether it be bestial oblivion or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered or cut in four pieces, a thought which quartered hath but one part wisdom and ever three parts coward. So all this thinking he's doing, if you took it and cut it into four pieces, only one part of it would be wisdom and the other three parts would be cowardice. So why it is that he is thinking so much about it and not acting, he says, I do not know. Why yet I live to say this thing's to do. Why am I still alive and this thing is undone? Why haven't I avenged my father's murder yet? Sith, which means since, sith I have cause and will and strength and means to do it. There is nothing that is forbidding him or keeping him from avenging his father's death except for himself, his own penchant, his own obsession with thinking so much about the event itself, the event being the avenging of his father's murder. He says, examples gross as earth exhort me. And now he's going to look at this Norwegian army going to fight a battle over a meaningless piece of land as an example for him to follow in how he should be conducting his life and obtaining his revenge. Examples gross as earth exhort me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince. The Prince of Norway is at the head of the army, and it is pretty obvious that Hamlet, as the Prince of Denmark, has got to see his corollary in the Prince of Norway and compare how he is acting as the Prince of Denmark with the way the Prince of Norway is acting in leading this army, led by a delicate and tender prince whose spirit with divine ambition puffed makes mouths at the invisible event, which means makes faces at the invisible event being the outcome of the battle. It is invisible because it has not happened yet, and we do not know which way the battle will go. Exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare. Isn't that a wonderful line? Exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell, this piece of land that is worthless as an eggshell. Rightly to be great, Hamlet says, rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake. So Hamlet is saying that rightly to be great is not only to battle over great things, but to battle over small things if honor's at the stake. It doesn't make any difference how big the battle is. If your honor is at stake, you must fight that battle no matter what. That's what he is concluding as he sees what the Prince of Norway is doing and comparing it with what he is doing. And now he's going to get into that comparison of the Prince of Norway to himself right now. How stand I then, he says, how stand I then that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep? I'm not doing anything about it. I'm just thinking. And let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and trick of fame go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause. The piece of land that they are fighting over is so small that they can't even fit their entire armies onto this piece of land to have the battle in the first place. Fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. Not only can the armies not fit on this piece of ground, there is not room enough on this piece of ground to bury the bodies of the soldiers who will die fighting for it. Oh, from this time forth, Hamlet concludes, oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. That ends Act 4, Scene 4, and Hamlet exits from the stage. And there at the end of that soliloquy is our line for today. Did you catch it? Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. Say it with me. Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. In other words, he's saying, from this time forth, all I'm going to think about is avenging my father's death. All I'm going to think about is killing Claudius. And if I think about anything other than that, those will be worthless thoughts. All I will occupy my mind with is the revenge that I must have upon Claudius for his murdering my father. And the third time pays for all. Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. Well, that's about all for tonight. Please remember, hit the like button. Also, please hit the subscribe button. And please leave a comment below as to your thoughts and ideas about this episode. And if you would be so kind as to donate to this program, please go to brushupyourshakespeare.org. Remember, that's brushupyourshakespeare.org. Click the donate button. And if you can make a monthly recurring donation of $5 a month, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. If you can donate more, $10 or $20 a month, so much the better, whatever you can afford. Your contributions will keep Brush Up Your Shakespeare coming to you on a regular basis. And please join me again for the next episode of Brush Up Your Shakespeare, where we will find Ophelia back at the castle having a lot of trouble dealing with the fact that Hamlet, the love of her life, whom she had to cut off her relationship with, that Hamlet, the love of her life, has ended up murdering her dad as her dad hid behind the arras, spying on the meeting between Hamlet and his mother, the queen. How does a young girl deal with that kind of psychological trauma? Well, spoiler alert, this next scene is called Ophelia's mad scene. Sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. At this point in Hamlet, things are just going to go from bad to worse. Please join me next time. This is Brush Up Your Shakespeare, signing off the air.